The Tuxtla Statuette. The Tuxtla Statuette is considered somewhat an enigma in Olmec archaeology. It has earned this representation because of the fact many people believe that it has one of the longest and earliest long count inscriptions engraved on it found in the New World. The Tuxtla Statuette was made by the Olmec people. The Olmec people spoke a Mande language. And in fact, you can look in Africa and you can find many symbols that are associated with the signs on the Tuxtla statuette found engraved on many sites in South in Africa where the Mande people live. The Tuxtla people lived in the Mande Heartland. The Mande Heartland was situated along the Gulf Coast. It was here that many Olmec kings left inscriptions telling us about their deeds and the fact that they should be recognized as people who are very important. The Olmec inscriptions record the names and deeds of many political officials, religious leaders, and kings. The Olmec inscriptions indicate that each Olmec town was ruled by either a governor or king, and that there was a recognized religious leader for the entire community. The Olmec king was usually referred to as Tu. The Olmec term for governor was Ku. Interestingly, some of the Olmec rulers were referred to as the Ku and Tu. This may suggest that within the Olmec civilization, some people lived in a confederation. In other words, the Olmec culture was made up of a number of city states, and each city state was recognized by its own leader. The Titular Statuette was found near Trezapotes. The little figure made of nephite stone has engraved hieroglyphics on its surface in 9 columns, including the well-known long count inscription. The Tuxtla statuette depicts a personage wearing a duck mask. Controversy surrounds the Tuxtla statuette because archaeologists deciphering the long count inscription has determined two dates for the numerals on the Tuxtla statuette. These two dates result from 862 417. This is basically because of the fact that the Tuxtla statuette has these signs on it, but it's very important to understand that when researchers attempt to read these signs, researchers use two different correlations, and these two correlations are linked to the Mesoamerican calendar. These correlations are used to make sure that you're able, in a sense, to connect those dates that the various Olmec and Maya people left with the dates of the Christian calendar. The beginning correlation, or correlation A, begins around October 4th, 3373 BC. Correlation B, on the other hand, begins the 13th of October, 3113 BC of the Christian calendar. Given the fact that there's two different correlations, that means in a sense that this dot and dash pattern of 862 417 can either be read as 162 AD if you're going to use correlation B, or a date in the 3rd century BC, around 97 BC, based on the present calculations. I believe that controversy surrounds the exact date of this inscription because it was not a date. It was a regular inscription introducing the obituary written on the Tuxtla Statuette. The bird played an important role in Olmec culture, as it did in the parent Mande group from which many of the Olmecs descended. Although most Mande today are Muslims, the Bambara continue to practice many of the pagan lifeways of the original Mande people. An examination of this culture traits can explain many aspects of Olmec culture. The bird plays an important role among the Mande people, in general in their cultural symbolism. Among the Bambara, the bird head signified the Nama, who protects people from the Suba or Subaga, werewolf or hyena. This word also means hyena, divinity, the instrument which imitates the cry of the hyena and used in ceremonies of the cult of the divinity. The Kungolo Nama, the head of the Nama, is represented by a fantastic bird with a beak. And you'll find that in many of the Olmec symbolism relating to religion, those Olmec religious leaders usually wear a mask that has a long beak, just like the bird in the Mande tradition. According to the Bambara people, during the mythical age, the first 8 ancestors of men were transformed into birds, and others became hyenas. The division of the ancestors of the Mande into birds and hyena may explain the appearance of the Olmec priests or chiefs as birds or jaguars. Among the Bambara, birds are associated with the totality of spiritual reality. Its emblem is a reed pipe, which initiates use as a musical instrument. In addition, the Kono mask represents a bird, which symbolizes a spirit. The mask plays an important role in African ritualism. The mask is a theophany, a visible manifestation of a god. The wearing of the mask, as long as the priest wore it, was a symbol that that priest represented the god on earth. Among traditional Manding people, the mask serves as a temporary dwelling place for the god. Among the Olmec, the term for duck is buru. This is interesting because buru means supreme, chief, king, or governor. Thus, the depiction of the personage on the Tuxtla Statuette with a beak, with a duck beak, may represent the high status of the personage the statuette was engraved to represent. We know, in a sense, that it's very important to recognize these elements of the Olmec religion. We recognize these elements of the Olmec religion because Olmecs had two different religious associations: the Gifa, the jaguar man or humano feline cult, and the humano bird cult. The humano feline cult was called the Namatigi by the Olmecs, while the humano feline cult was called the Kunotigi. The leader of the Olmec cult was called the Tigi or Amantigi, leader of the faith. The leader of the religion was the governor or king of the city. The governor or Tigi of the Olmec secret societies or cults exerted considerable influence, both dead and alive. Alive, he could contact the spirits of the deceased and serve as an intermediary between the gods and mankind. Upon his death, his grave became a talisman, bestowing good to all who visited his tomb. This is what we find in relationship to the Tuxtla Statuette. The Tuxtla Statuette was made in a sense to let the followers of the people in this area understand that they could always come back to the tomb, and at the tomb they could gain grace, mercy, and blessings. The Tuxtla Statuette was probably placed in a tomb. According to the inscriptions on the Tuxtla Statuette, the person whose named on the statuette was Tutu. Tutu was identified as an Olmec governor. We find, in a sense, that when we look at this beautiful statuette, we find that the statuette includes a number of Olmec signs. These Olmec signs are engraved on the front, of the Tuxtla Statuette. They're engraved on the right and the left side of the titular statuette. And we also see a number of signs on the back of the titular statuette. These signs, in a sense, give us a very keen insight into Tutu and what he represented to the various Olmec people in the town where he lived. Given this background on the Tuxtla Statuette, now I will read you a translation of the text. On the front of the text, we see the signs. These signs read, "Offer pure cleansing libations at this habitation. Thine has reached your final destination, your vast tomb area. It is an extensive abode of peace. Your pure heart, it is realized." Or we could read this. "This is the home of thy spirit. It is here. This abode is thrust down in the ground here. He has an important personage with considerable and effective wonder-working power." If we read these inscriptions as a date, they would read, "Offer pure cleansing libations at this habitation today, 162 AD. Your pure heart, it is realized." Or it could read, "Offer pure cleansing libations at this habitation today, 97 BC. Your pure heart, it is realized." Again, as I mentioned earlier, you can read these inscriptions, if it is a date, for two different time periods, depending upon what correlation you read. Let's look at what it says on the right side of the Tuxtla Statuette. Here we read, "The large hemisphere tomb, a place of rest to be realized here. Thou art firmly situated with the divinity, a very honest, pure governor, supporter of the pure law. Your spirit rests here. This big hemisphere tomb, it is thine, O Tutu, supporter of pure righteousness. At this moment you are in a state of retreat. In purity, thou art an envoy on a mission of good." On the back of the column we read, "Tutu, he is in possession of much purity. He is the same as purity itself. His tomb is the same as a talisman. Righteousness is here. This big hemisphere tomb is a lucky talisman, causing here to lay the conference of all the dead man's virtue to this very good abode. To realize no vice at this habitation, it is a pure stem which lays low in this tomb, to give a blow to crush evil. He is at an end, existence no more. He is pushed in the lowest bed of the tomb, existing no more. The soul is to retreat from this tomb to realize much. You realize the pure principle of life. Now you are endowed with mysterious faculties. You are the manifestation of the best way of life." And finally, we also read, "This is the place of the ruler, the head of the government. His main mission was to uphold the law." We see here, in a sense, that Governor Tutu had a very important role to play. We see that Governor Tutu not only led his people and protected his people while he was on earth, he also, in a sense, took care of his people and was there, in a sense, to provide them with guidance once he died. It is here, in a sense, that people can find this very important message that Tutu left for his people. The Tuxtla Statuette, a very great and wonderful artifact of the Olmec that tells us much about how they loved their people.